Chapter 3, Exponential Functions. So for question 29, it's asking, graph each exponential function, identify the domain, range, x and y intercepts, intervals of increasing/decreasing, and asymptote.
Question A is 5 times 1 over 3 to the power of x. So the asymptote is automatically 0 because we know the y-intercept, there's nothing here. If there was, for example, plus 1, then the asymptote would be 1. But there's not. So for these points, I have written a chart, and then I wrote -2, -1, 0, 1, 2, 3 for x. So we're just going to plug each of these values into x, and we'll get our y. So I'll show you a couple examples where I plug in x in my calculator and then give the answers for the rest. So 5 bracket 1 over 3 bracket to the power of -2. So that gives me 45. So I'm just going to write this in the y. We'll do example for -1. So 5 bracket 1 over 3 to the power of -1. And that gives me 15. So plug in the rest and you'll get your y. So once you plugged in all your points, you should have 45, 15, 5, 5 over 2, 5 over 9, and 5 over 27. Then you're going to turn to your graph and you're going to make a scale that's set for 45, but then it'll also go up by 5s to fit your y's. So I set my scale up by going 5 every 2 blocks, and now you're going to graph it. So you're going to look at your x point for -2, and you're going to go all the way up to 45. So that's going to be right over here. Then you're going to look at -1, which is plotted at 15, right over there. 0 is at 5, it's right over there, so you can already see it forming. 1 is at 5 over 2. So you're going to kind of plot it as close as you can. 2 is at 5 over 9, and 3 is at 2 over 27. So you're going to line it up as best as you can. And you see your graph is decreasing. So for the interval, I'm going to write that in. So the interval, it's decreasing. The function is defined for all values of x, therefore the domain is x to the element of r. The function has positive values for y, but y never reaches 0, therefore the range is going to be x. It's going to be y to the element of r. Y is greater than, less than 0. There's no x-intercept, so none. And your y-intercept is 5.
So you can tell the way I graphed my points going up by 2 squares, and you see that the graph is decreasing. And then my chart here, and all my values. The answer for 29A is correct. The domain is x to the amount of r, the range is e to the element of r, y is greater than, less than 0, there's no x-intercept, y-intercept is 5, it's decreasing, and the asymptote is 0. So for question B, it's y equals -4 to the power of -x. But for now, we're just going to ignore the negative exponent, and the asymptote value is 0 because there's no y-intercept. And for our x points, we're going to use -1, 0, 1, 2, and 3. So you're just going to plug each value into x without using the negative exponent and write down your y values. So once you plugged in all your values, you're going to get -0.25, 1, -4, 16, and -64. So now we're going to apply the negative to the exponent of the x. So we're going to use mapping notations, and we're going to convert everything into negative. So since the -2.5 is already negative, that's going to stay the same. So we're going to rewrite that in the y column, and the 1 will turn to -1, the -4 remains the same, negative 16 will change, and negative 64 will remain the same. Now for our x values, negative 1 will change to 1 because we're just going to convert that. 0 is the same. Now it's going to change to negative 1, negative 2, and negative 3. So these are the points we will graph to see our value of y equals negative 4 to the power of negative x. So I plotted an appropriate scale going up by 8. So negative 8, negative 16, negative 24, and so on. So now I'm going to plot my points. So 1 and negative 0.25. So plot that as best you can. Just going to roll around here. 0 and negative 1. Negative 1 and negative 4. So right about there. Negative 2 and negative 16. Negative 3 and negative 64. So you can see this kind of turning out as your graph. And that the interval is increasing because the graph starts from here and it goes up. The asymptote is 0. The domain is x to the element of r. The range is y to the element of r. Y is less than or equal to 0. There's no x-intercept, and the y-intercept is negative 1 because there's a negative in front of the 4. The answer for 29b is correct.